All right. Hello, Sunday Bible study people. Putting this out a day in advance. Again, I'm going out of town next week, so I'm going to get a little bit of ahead. Then I'll disappear, and then I'll come in and make up for it. So I'm already going to knock out. Already did Saturdays today. I'm going to do Sundays today, and then on Sunday I'll probably do Monday and Tuesday. Yeah. So anyway, when I get back on Friday, I'll do Wednesday, Thursday, and then on Saturday, I'll do Friday and Saturday and be caught up. All right. So we're moving on to Daniel. This will be Daniel, the 6th study. Very, very exciting. He immediately called out his soldiers. This is Acts of the Apostles, by the way. He immediately called out his soldiers and officers and ran down among the crowd. When the mob saw the commander and the troops coming, they stopped beating Paul. Then the commander arrested him and ordered him bound with 2 chains. He asked the crowd, I think this is when Paul might take his journey on the trip. I think he's bound pretty much forever here on out, which is where he writes a lot of his epistles from jail. Then the commander arrested him and ordered him bound with 2 chains. He asked the crowd who he was and what he had done. Some of them shouted one thing, some another. Since he couldn't find out the truth, all in an uproar and confusion, he ordered Paul to be taken to the fortress. As Paul reached the stairs, the mob grew so violent, the soldiers had to lift him to their shoulders to protect him. And the crowd followed behind him, shouting, kill him, kill him. It's kind of like almost a Jesus reenactment, right? Crucify, crucify. As Paul was about to be taken inside, he said to the commander, may I have a word with you? Do you know Greek? The commander asked, surprised, aren't you Egyptian? Who led a rebellion some time ago and took 4,000 members of Asians out of the desert? No, Paul replied, I'm a Jew, a citizen of Tarsus in Cilicia, which is an important city. Please let me talk to these people. The commander agreed, so Paul stood on the stairs and motioned to the people to be quiet. Soon a deep silence enveloped the crowd, and he addressed them in their own language, Aramaic. All right, let's begin Daniel. In the 3rd reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, into Jerusalem and besieged it. And of course, this is all the Lord's will. And like everything is, because he's ordained the end from the beginning. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with part of the vessels of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar. Now, by the way, a lot of people will say, yes, Judah was thrown into the hands of Babylon because of all the bad things they had done. Folks, it's not cause and effect. It's written as cause and effect. That's the parable. The truth of the matter is, since God's ordained the end from the beginning, and there's no such thing as free will, because we know this Bible verse declaring the end from the beginning. From ancient times are the things that have not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, I will do my pleasure. God ordained that Judah would fall, that they would do bad things. He let them be handled by Satan. They did wrongly. And then consequently, then he ordained that they would go into Babylon. Everything that's happened to me or you, your children or your parents, or to the Jews or to the Egyptians, God ordained it from the very beginning. And so part of the vessels of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his God. And he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. So Jehoiakim, it doesn't even say Nebuchadnezzar's name, but what took place here was, as Nebuchadnezzar is holding Judah captive and bringing them in, he's also bringing in the vessels of the house of God, which we'll get into later on in this book of Daniel. Plays quite the key role in the downfall basically of the downfall of Babylon, if I'm not mistaken, over to the hands of the Medes and the Persians. I think. I don't think it was the Medes and the Persians that did it, but hey, that's why I'm doing a 6th study, right? And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain, just, certain ones of the children of Israel, and of course of the king's seed, Jehoiakim's seed, and of the princes, and of these children, that had no blemish, well favored, skillful in wisdom, cunning in knowledge, understanding science, whatever that is back then and today. Today is nothing but scientism and pseudoscience, all fake science. And such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace. So in other words, he put the eunuch in charge of these special children from Israel to raise them in the ways of the Chaldeans, so they could stand in the presence of the king and help out in manners when wisdom is needed. So let me read that again. And understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans, which was astrology and all other kind of esoteric metaphysical stuff. And the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat, so a certain training table type meal the king had appointed them to eat, and of the wine which he drank. So part of what the king was eating, they were getting to eat along with what the king was drinking. So nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king, and of course, what? Be great, like football. Excuse me. Sorry, a bug fly in my mouth. Let's see if I can feel it or get it out. It was like a gnat. Sorry, I tried. You heard me try to like get it out. It didn't work. Sound like a pit bull, didn't I? Sorry. So yeah, there's one still flying around too. So nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might be able to stand before the king. And what that's talking about, is that they would be learning the astrology, learning all the stuff the Chaldeans learned. Anyway, love y'all very much. Ask questions anytime. That's what I'm here for.